Lynn Mitchell joins me from the safety office this morning. We're going to share some information about proper personal protective equipment. Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning.
Now, what exactly is PPE and why is it so important to our workforce?
Well, PPE, otherwise known as personal protective equipment, are things such as our earplugs, our respirators, face shields, safety glasses, safety shoes, those things that serve as a barrier between us and a hazard. The reason they're so important is because it is that last line of defense. We should be trying to reduce the hazard as much as possible, but if we can't reduce it all the way, we have to protect it using the personal protective equipment. Therefore, you don't want it to fail because then you're exposed to the hazard.
Okay, so since you mentioned it, that is our last barrier between us and an injury or an accident, how do we ensure that our PPE doesn't fail us?
Well, we want to make sure we maintain it, clean it properly. First off, we'll inspect it. You should inspect it each time before use, regardless of the type of PPE it is. Always check it to ensure it has proper integrity so that it will protect you like it's designed to do. Check for things like holes in gloves, scratches or cracks in face shields or safety glasses, exposed under protection of the shoe. If your shoe is showing the steel toe part, they need to be replaced. Things like that. You want to make sure it's maintained so that it doesn't get smushed, doesn't get out of shape where you store it. Also, we want to really make sure we emphasize cleaning it properly. We just put out a recent bulletin discussing cleaning of PPE, and that's really extremely important to make sure that our PPE itself does not become a hazard. If we don't maintain it, we don't clean it between use, contamination from the area can build up, can work its way towards the inside that's going to be against your skin. Also, most of us are doing heavy enough work that we're sweating in our PPE, and if we're not getting that grime out of it after each use, you can get bacterial buildup and it can become an issue as well. So we want to make sure that we inspect it, that we store it properly to keep it maintained and clean it as well.
Okay, and along those lines, we probably want to make sure that anything that's single use is really only a single use.
Yes, single use such as a lot of the hearing protection that we have out there that's just the foam disposable type. We don't want to use those day after day. We want to use them once and dispose of them. Anytime you're setting that down on a piece of equipment or a surface, it can pull up contamination and then you'd be putting that back in your ear. So if it's intended to be disposable, make sure we dispose of it.
Okay. How do we know what PPE we should be wearing when we're doing our jobs?
Well, general PPE is going to be designated on the outside of our buildings, things such as like our safety shoes and safety glasses. You're going to see postings outside most of our industrial shops that say that requirement, as well as any area that requires hearing protection should have signage to indicate that. There will be specific PPE for individual tasks that we might be doing, things such as hearing protection. If we're working with air actuated tools, all that requires hearing protection, single use. However, if we move up to something like a 3/4 inch impact, we're going to require double hearing protection. Specific PPE should be outlined on the job hazard analysis for that task. It should outline if there's a specific glove that's required, if double hearing protection is required, if a chemical apron is required. That should be outlined on the JHA. If it's not or it's not clear, get with the supervisor. He can get with safety or industrial hygiene to get further direction.
Which also means we need to be reading our JHAs on a regular basis.
Yes, we should be pulling out those JHAs and reviewing them. They are required to be reviewed at least annually by the shop to make sure they're still current, but they should be looked at on a routine basis.
Okay. What else do we need to know about PPE?
I would just emphasize that it is our last resort. We do what we can to reduce the hazards through engineering controls and other means to just eliminate it altogether, but there's going to be cases where it can't be fully reduced. In that case, we have to wear personal protective equipment, so we want to make sure that it is maintained so that it does the job it's designed to do.
Okay. Now, if employees want to know a little more, if they have some additional questions, who do they contact?
They can contact the main safety number at 7541, and they'll get probably in touch with me, but they can get help from safety at that number.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.